careers. We provide a 12-month software apprenticeship program. And get picked up by a big tech company.
What Mike has built and what this team brings is it's AAA class.
And I thought, this is the model that we're going to grow Genus.
I would first look to contract out to creating coding careers where you're going to get experienced technology. The pipeline into your company for long-term growth.
So you're better off starting where you can groom and mentor and shape, people for your organization.
I've worked with coding teams for many years. And
welcome back. I'm excited about our guest today. We do this every Friday, and we have a good one in store for you. So one thing I want to mention at the top, I am not only excited about this, but I'm excited that we are very close to launching our platform we've been talking about for a long time to help people get some paid work experience. So if you are interested, head on over to Groxley. We'll put a link in the comments. Sign up for the beta. We're going to be releasing it really, really soon. And it's in conjunction with like a bunch of new curriculum that we just launched on our platform. So if you're thinking about after today, you're thinking about, hey, maybe apprenticeship might be a good pattern or route for me, I would encourage you to sign up, jump in. It is 100% free to go through our pre-apprenticeship program, and it's a great way to prepare for a new collar career. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my co-hosts and have him kick it off. So please help me welcome Deontay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Happy Cinco De Mayo. I'm Deontay Collins from Creating Coding Careers, where we help aspiring developers transition into ServiceNow web development roles. I'm joined by my co-host, Alex Martinez.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So after our guest speaker sessions, usually what I do is I'll just reach out to everybody who attended and ask them what they thought and ask them, like, who would you like to see in the future? And usually a lot of people say, we'd like to see somebody who's in the SecOps GRC space because it seems to be one of the more popular. It's in demand. It's quite lucrative. So I'd like to introduce our next guest. He's joining us from halfway around the world, from England. I'd like to give a big welcome to our ServiceNow Dev MVP, Philip Swann. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
Hi, happy Cinco de Mayo, and thanks for having me.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. So when I first reached out to you and we started chatting, I learned that you actually entered into the tech space via an apprenticeship program. And I'd love to hear what you were doing before you got into that apprenticeship program and give us a little bit more detail of what your experience was like during that apprenticeship program.
Sure. Well, actually, in terms of how I got into the apprenticeship program, for me, it was straight from school. So, in the UK, we have GCSEs. That's leaving school at 16. I wasn't sure what path I was going to take exactly. I was into computers. I was quite lucky back then to have, a personal computer at home and access to the internet way before internet was in everybody's house, at least, dial-ups and so on. And I wanted to do graphic design. So I was doing art at school. I was drawing, really enjoying the kind of the creative side of technology in terms of drawing things up. I don't know if anyone remembers sort of Serif Page Plus and creating newspapers and those types of things. And I ended up applying for a job at EDS, if you recognize the cup in the background, actually. Sat down at this, I got invited for an aptitude test, and I sat down and it was an algebra exam. And I'm sat in this boardroom with sort of 10, 12 other people. And did the exam conditions. A couple of people left midway through, finished, and then they said, anybody got any questions? And I put my hand up and said, do you do graphic design? And bless John Stevens, rest in peace, my first manager, you know, he looked taken aback. I'll put it that way. He said, I'm not sure. If you know EDS, I don't know if you, electronic data systems kind of founded the IT industry. They didn't really do graphic design back then, but I did pass the aptitude test and ended up starting an apprenticeship in software development. So that's how I got into it. You know, I was 16. First few weeks in this big office, a few weeks later, somebody said to me, this is a long work experience. And I said, oh, I'm full time. You know, I must have been the youngest person in the building.
Yeah, 16. Wow.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. I didn't transition from somewhere else. I came straight from school, but IT wasn't really a thing. It wasn't a career back then. You know, I'm talking in the year 2000. So
Right. Yeah.
How's that for an intro, Alex?
No, that was a perfect intro. Deontay, what do you got, man?
Are we?
Oh, I think you're muted, Deontay.
Oh yeah, I was. Apologies, folks.
There we go.
Yeah, Phil got a question for you. So how did you get introduced to working with, like, you know, ServiceNow? Like, how did you start working in GRC, SecOps, stuff like that?
Sure. So, I mean, like I said, year 2000, it was a long time back. There was technology was still kind of evolving quite slowly then. It felt, you know, like the changes then felt drastic but slow compared to what you see nowadays. I was back in EDS doing these computer-based training, self-taught stuff on EDS University online. And I learned a bit of JavaScript, a bit of HTML, and I was knocking around with web pages, etc. My career took a bit of a turn because software development stopped being an option. I got taken off the project, started working in infrastructure and in IT outsourcing, data center operations, moved into process improvement, business analysis, did some Lean Six Sigma. And I realized that through all of these areas that I worked in, every job I started at, the process started with a mailbox. You used to have to monitor a group mailbox. That was always the thing. It didn't matter if it was Outlook or Lotus Notes. And then, you know, back in 2014, I took a role as change analyst, managing change requests for the IT infrastructure of a hotels and restaurants brand. And guess what? It started with a mailbox. The RFC used to come in as an attachment, and they had ServiceNow. And I remember looking at it going, that doesn't look like the ServiceNow I know, because back then it was Fuji was the latest release, but they were on Calgary. So I'm managing this mailbox, I'm logging requests in, and you've got that back and forth with the project manager that just wants to get their change approved. You know, they want to turn up on cab on a Wednesday, get the rubber stamp, but you're going, I can't log this change. You haven't filled out that form correctly. I've got this information I need. You haven't provided it. They're sending a copy of their old change request, etc. So I ended up getting into ServiceNow improvement and development, working with the partner and also working with the platform from an administrative perspective, and realizing as I peeled back the layers, it's JavaScript. You know, ultimately underneath it's JavaScript, but it was a bit different. My first JavaScript experience was client side. It was very much in the browser. And then in ServiceNow, it was server side. And I didn't know what was going on, to be honest. That took me back because JavaScript had evolved massively, all these different libraries, etc. So that's how I kind of got into it. That was me thinking, oh, I get this. I feel like ServiceNow could be a place. You can improve processes, you can optimize, you can develop, you can be creative.
Nice. So the actual platform interested you. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that were using the platform then were not using it to its maximum capability. Like I say, they were a few versions behind, and everyone was a bit scared of ServiceNow. What is it? So I started a community within that organization, and we used to have a weekly or monthly forum working with all the different users of the platform. I took ownership of the platform to get it upgraded and maintained, went to Fuji, then to Geneva, introduced a self-service portal using the old CMS before Service Portal was a thing. All change requests started coming through this portal then. So guess what? They came with all the information you needed. You weren't getting these blank RFCs saying, please, I need a change tomorrow. It was coming through with all the information you needed. We were able to do that pushback quite early on, and then take the change request forward very rapidly. The platform side of things was definitely insightful. I think the fact that you could do all of these things on one platform as well. It's not just ITSM. There was a HR application that was using it.
I want to give a quick shout out. We got Callie Alexander in the house. We got Michael Lombardo in the house from the GlideFast team. Thanks
Wow.
for showing up, guys. Yeah, big players in the industry. I know you found your space. You seem to have become this guru in GRC and SecOps. Can you, for all those newbies out here, can you tell us what is GRC, what is SecOps, and what does a day look like for you in your workday?
Sure, and thank you. Thanks for I never call myself a guru, but I appreciate that. So I got into GRC by accident, fell into it as usual, as people do, fall into things. I got put on a project for a bank, and they were migrating from the old GRC, the global apps, to the new scoped apps. Okay, so that's kind of how I got into it. What is GRC? It stands for governance, risk, and compliance. You might see it called IRM, integrated risk management. They're the same thing. The IRM is a bit more, I think, a bit broader. It covers more than just, a GRC sounds a bit old now, I think, but it's the same thing in ServiceNow. GRC, IRM, integrated risk management. SecOps, security, that's not my baby. I work very closely with people that I would say are experts in security. I would never put myself in that box. I do sit in the room with people that do security. That's a deep topic in itself. So I leave that to the people. If you want somebody doing your security, you want somebody who knows security. I can integrate GRC with security. Sure, we can have a very good conversation on that, but I'm not an expert at all in the security space, to be quite honest. I'll leave that to our other team. GRC, you're talking about risk. You're talking about mitigating risk. What is risk? It's the potential for something to harm your business, something to prevent your business achieving its objectives. You say, if you're on the stock market, or if you are just working with your organization, and we're going to do that this year. This year, we're going to hit these numbers. Anything that stands in the way of that, anything that might affect your ability to achieve that objective, that's a risk. And then a control is something that you put in the way of the risk. Okay, so it's something you do to stop that risk from actually being realized. I like to break it down to the concept of a fire. The potential's always there. In your house, you're always managing the risk of fire. You turn the sockets off, you turn the oven off, you have smoke detectors. In the office, you have fire extinguishers, fire drills, those things that you do to prevent that risk from being realized. Those are controls. So GRC allows you to plug in to the processes you're running on the ServiceNow platform. If you're running your IT service management through there, you're making sure that your services are up and you're able to deliver the business to your customers. Then GRC's there making sure that those things are working correctly. And one risk, obviously, is compliance. It's if you don't comply with these laws and legislation, then you are going to get hit with a fine, which is going to affect your ability to achieve those numbers. So, it all comes back around. But when you start putting GRC on the platform, I can tell you that GRC has got some of the most advanced capabilities underneath it that really excite me in terms of how it automates, how powerful it is, and the opportunity to learn from GRC and think, I can apply that into my use cases and build better apps as a result. So I should pause.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions from the crowd. Deontay, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to pull one from the crowd as well. You can go.
Yeah, go. That's all you, man. Go for it.
Yeah, we got one from right here from Anna Davis, I see. She says, hey, what's the best way to enter SecOps? And more specifically, GRC?
The best way, I mean, if you look at one of the, regardless of GRC or SecOps, actually, I would refer to the CJ and the Duke podcasts, and they talk about the domain knowledge and going deep or going wide. Yeah. And they talk about make sure you understand that domain. I think, Rob talks more in the sense of project management, portfolio management, or SPM, those sorts of areas. But if you understand that area, that domain, then getting into it and solving it on ServiceNow is definitely a thing. So look at some domain knowledge. Look at standards like information security, ISO 27000. I see Anna also mentioning NIST. There's a number of different NIST frameworks as well. But if you look at those frameworks and look at how they might apply, even if you look at something like ITIL, something that is a best practice framework, it's a process that's supposed to follow you're supposed to do a certain thing. How can you look at ServiceNow and make sure that that process is doing a certain thing? That's really what it boils down to. To enter into it, I mean, same with anything on ServiceNow, build it, play with it, break it, take it apart, right-click everything, right-click everywhere on ServiceNow. You'll be surprised.
And as a follow-up question, it actually was my next question for you. What is the best way to enter SecOps, and more specifically, GRC, governance risk management compliance? I know ServiceNow has pathways that they built out, and it's just pretty much a list of all the courses that you have to take to, be proficient in a pathway. Is that the course of action that someone should take if they're interested in getting to the GRC?
Yeah, absolutely. The learning paths on Now Learning are amazing. They will guide you through. They'll give you that basic fundamental knowledge on the platform. The ServiceNow administration, I think it's been renamed recently. So you will learn about the platform. You'll learn about the capabilities of the platform. The BPC learning path as well. That's mandatory for us at Rangu. All of our consultants are doing the BPC learning path. That's teaching you how to use Now Create for any project. You've then got the success packs. So once you've got your certification, that's obviously one tick in the box. You know something about that product to a point. Then you've got to be able to have the conversations. And actually, I think that's one of the hardest things I found with GRC, and also working in privacy as well, that compared to IT and security, you're dealing with technical people. When you start talking to the GRC folks and the privacy, typically you're dealing with compliance and legal, and it's a different conversation, and you need to learn that language. You need to understand, they're calling this a risk, and actually it's an issue. You've got to pick up on that nuance. I think sitting in the room, if you can shadow a project from the beginning to the end, if you can look at that project and ask questions safely, then you're going to get that experience. It's going to start to bed in.
That makes sense. So can you tell us a little bit about Discode? I saw you had the utility for the platform.
Discode, yes. Excellent. I was not expecting that question. Was that in the chat, or was that from you, Deontay?
No, that was right here. That was from here.
Excellent. Oh, wow. I appreciate the fact that you even have that question in your pocket. So Discode, that's my name that I made up. It's Discover Code. It's code discovery. And again, it's taking actually some of the learnings that I've got from GRC, something like Glide Scoped Evaluator. If you look at what Glide Scoped Evaluator can do, because everyone knows eval is evil, right? So ServiceNow wrapped eval up, and then they made that deprecated as well. You now have Glide Scoped Evaluator. So I use, I think, some of the principles of indicators in a sense to execute some scanning, and it will look at it uses the CMDB. Okay, CMDB you can extend without any implications on license. So it extends into the CMDB, and every artifact of your application, I should tell you what the problem it solves is, it allows you to visualize your application on the platform. It allows you to understand the relationships of your application on the platform. So take for GRC, for example, install Discode from share on your PDI. Don't put it in production. It's not it's not certified, right? Yeah, it's a development, it's a community application. And then run it on your scope, run it on SN_GRC or SN_compliance. It will execute and look at your tables. It will look at your script includes. It will look at those tables and it will look at your roles in the scope. And it will say this role has got this kind of access control. This role inherits this role. This access control allows me to read this table. So you can see that role can read that table via another role inheritance. It will show you that table is running these business rules. It's running these UI actions or has these UI actions. And those business rules and UI actions in turn call a script include. And that script include inherits another script include. So how can you visualize that in ServiceNow in the CMDB? And what are those things? Effectively, they're configuration items. So it looks at those artifacts, it scans them, and it creates a representation of that application in the CMDB, builds the relationship, and then allows you to visualize it. I've got to shout out
Wow.
Nicola Attico. I hope I said that correctly, Nicola. He's doing something with a now graph that is blown that away. Yeah, so just got to shout Nicola out. But that's what this code is. That's what it's there for. And it's using some strategy patterns that I learned from indicator strategy. It's not the cleanest code, but certainly I know it's had 30 downloads, I think, on Share. And quite a number of people have installed it on their platform to understand what is going on their platform. The only thing is, in global, it might be a little bit... I'm not sure what happens there in global, but it's meant for scoped apps. So... have you used it, Deontay?
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. No, I haven't used it myself, but it definitely sounds like something that that is needed, man. Like a dashboard. So was it like in a graph or like a dashboard kind of component?
There is a dashboard for it that will kind of tell you what kind of classes you've got. So you've got this number of business rules, you've got this number of tables. It will tell you the number of artifacts that is kind of discovered.
Nice.
But that's just to give you a feel for the scale. Then the actual visualization is done in the business service map, which is just native to ServiceNow CMDB. Actually, I remember one of the first things I did was connect BMC Atrium ADDM into ServiceNow, and it was spitting out a CSV file. We connected through a mid server and then plugged that into the CMDB. And I was doing all these change requests I mentioned earlier, and I didn't know this server from that server. We built this transform map from BMC, and I remember the first day we turned that on, and when I was able to now see this server connected to that, it blew my mind. So the CMDB in ServiceNow is just so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. What you got, Alex?
We had another couple of questions coming from the crowd. I think when you were giving your explanation of GRC and SecOps, they're asking, is it like disaster recovery, Phil?
Well, disaster recovery, I think, is one part of business continuity management as a practice, if you like. So if you forget ServiceNow for a moment and think disaster recovery, I've worked in data center operations in the past. I've worked for financial institutes where you have to do a DR test, as part of your license for your banking license. For you to operate, you have to prove that should that happen, you're able to flip it over, and whether you got hot standbys and all of that stuff. That's kind of disaster recovery. It's one small part of business continuity management, and DR planning, DR tests, and business continuity management. That's one part of the GRC suite, if you like. If you look at, there's a specific application for it. It's called BCM, or Business Continuity Management, and that allows you to look at your organizational assets, so what's in your CMDB, and prioritize them and understand which of those you need to actually build a business continuity plan for, based on the priority, based on the severity of the service that it's providing. And that can talk to and plug into GRC, but it's not GRC. It's a different part of that kind of ecosystem. but it's all about managing and mitigating risk.
There seems to be like some kind of this is a follow-up question, maybe somebody different. Can't tell who it was. So is GRC more about security event management, or did I misunderstand something?
No, security event management, I would say, is somewhere over there, just outside of ServiceNow. Typically, you've got other providers, other vendors that are doing this. If I was to name a few, you'll see that I am not an expert here, but things like Splunk, things like Tenable, Qualys, these are security products that are doing things like scanning your environment and looking for vulnerabilities, or looking at logs and saying, I've got something going on. Also, Microsoft Sentinel would be another example, where within your network, something's been detected. That would be an event. If that event looks suspicious in some way, it might get rolled up and correlated against an alert. That alert would then be looked at in combination with all the other events that are going on, all these different kind of clues that are going on in your environment. That alert would then be prioritized or looked at. It might get treated automatically, and then that alert could be converted to an incident, a security incident. Okay, not an incident in ITSM. Don't run your security through ITSM, right? It's similar. It's not the same. It's different. Security incidents should have, a very focused approach. But all of that stuff I just mentioned, those third-party providers, they come into ServiceNow through something called a SIEM, a security incident event management. I'm not sure what it stands for off the top of my head. SIEM, SIEM. Okay, so ServiceNow SecOps has two main parts. You've got security incident response, we call it SIR, and then VR or VM, vulnerability management or vulnerability response. One's kind of proactive, one's reactive. But that a lot of that intelligence, ServiceNow is not trying to solve everything. ServiceNow is very much working on integrations as well. So it wants to take the best from your security products and those focused vendors and bring that into ServiceNow, so you've got that single pane of glass and connectivity into understand, well, hold on a minute, this thing that's under attack is critical. What's my BCM? What's my BCP for that thing? What's my risks? What's my controls? Are they working? It all starts to go around in a beautiful circle.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to get everybody's questions here from the chat if we can.
Should I shorten my answers?
No.
Oh, no. You're good, man. You're completely good. We got, hey, Phil, I loved your long form Phil Goes Deep YouTube videos. Any chance we'll see more of them?
Oh, man, this is my first live since Hacktoberfest in 2022, I think. I did a test stream. Unfortunately, I've had some technical issues, and I'm trying to get them resolved. It's all my fault. I'm just I'm not prioritizing things correctly in that sense. But if you've looked at the Phil Goes Deep channel, you'll see that they're definitely long form, right? They're 2-3 hours long. I never recommend them to people because maybe within there somewhere there might be a couple of diamonds, but you've got to really go through it. If I do one live, please like, subscribe, and you'll see the alerts. I have no current plans. I don't want to make false promises, but I hope to get back on there soon.
That's cool. That's a good answer. That's a good answer, man. Thank you, Kelly, for dropping in the Now Learning link for the BPC path. So if anybody wants to get that, she dropped that in there. And then we actually have a question from Kelly. She said, hey, would you speak a bit about the distinction between GRC, SIR, and EM?
I'm not sure if that's kind of, I'll touch on this because I think I just did it. So the way I would frame this one, okay, is, and when we talk about EM, I'm thinking that's event management. In just the wider context, event management, because event management could also be happening from a service rather than, it doesn't have to be a security event. It could be, your hard disk looks like it's going to be full. Your CPU's running at 99% for longer than, etc. Those things could be events in the service management side. So event management generally is the detection of things that might be of concern and want to be aggregated. SIR is security incident response. That's very much focused on dealing with something that has gone wrong or we think might have gone wrong. That security incident could be, I've lost my laptop. You know, I'm not sure what's happened to my laptop. Last time I saw it, I was on the train, or I know I left it on the train. That could be a security incident. Or it could be we've just seen somebody leak our files on the dark web. You know, there's a huge array of things that security incidents are potentially going to contain, but they can be very sensitive. You don't necessarily want your whole organization to know that you're experiencing a security incident right now. It can create panic. So you really want the focused security team that understands security to be able to deal with that in a calm, professional manner, and only engage with the rest of the organization as necessary. That's why I say don't put it on ITSM. Security incident is then one of the areas that you would potentially use ServiceNow for solving. It's great at solving workflow, and enhancing the workflow. GRC is a consumer of whatever you've got on your platform. And it's like the policeman on the platform or the lighthouse, okay? So it's not doing anything really. It's receiving stuff from the platform. So if you're doing ITSM, then maybe you've got, a source of, you want to make sure your changes are being managed correctly. That's something that ISO 27000 will care about. Are you managing changes in a safe and secure way? So you might look at your change requests and bring them into GRC. You might look at your security incident response, make sure they're being done in accordance with the priorities and the right teams working on them. GRC is checking things are following the right process, the expected behaviors, that those processes that you expect are being modeled correctly. That's a control, and the controls linked to the risks. Okay, so I'm not sure if I brought that together for you, Callie.
Yeah, that was a very good breakdown. You had already kind of answered it before, but that was definitely a very good elaboration of it.
Got another question from the crowd. Yeah, this is from our very own Alfred Piñaranda. He is one of our SkillBridge participants. So we have a lot of people transitioning from the military into tech, and this gentleman is one of our participants. He asks, how important is it to have a security clearance in GRC? More importantly, would you recommend someone to go into SecOps if they already have a security clearance?
So I think I'm not sure how it is in the US. In the UK, there are different levels of clearance, right? And even just to work in the IT industry nowadays, you're going to be vetted to a certain point. There's different levels depending who your organization is. Obviously, working with government, you need to have certain level of clearance. Working with military, you need to have certain, probably enhanced level of clearance. Working with, those government agencies, depending where they are, if you're working in nuclear, it really depends, I would say, on the industry, and it depends on who your customers are. But certainly if you've got that already, that is going to be an asset. That's something that's going to avoid maybe some delays, at least, to get you productive. But you still need to understand that, that's not domain knowledge. That just means you're authorized to log in. You can be trusted with that information. I don't think it's important. It's important. I don't think it's critical. I don't think it's mandatory. But certainly we want to make sure the people that are working in this part of the industry are definitely, trustworthy, and we understand who those people are. So having that badge already, that's going to get you, I think, through the front door.
Got another question from the crowd here. This is from Anna Davis. She is one of our apprentices here at Creating Coding Careers. Anna's asking, SecOps is the collaboration between IT operations and IT security. Have you seen vast improvements in security flow within organizations or enterprise after implementations of ServiceNow SecOps GRC?
So I do like to separate the two, but absolutely. In terms of seeing improvements in workflow, security flow, of course, you're able to get that information from, inception through to fulfillment or closure effectively. The right team at the right time is the perfect platform to solve that problem. When you start to connect that into your infrastructure and that model of your infrastructure, and you understand that you're dealing with things in a much more objective way, because that's the most critical. They're your crown jewels, if you like. Layering that in the workflow plus the insights together, it's a match made in heaven.
Got another question from the crowd here. This is from Simon Hendry, an expert in SecOps. Simon asks, is cloud security posture management on your radar? And is it something clients are asking about?
So I'm not familiar with that particular set of acronym, like those letters in that order, but cloud security, absolutely, and that's I think where we're seeing some challenges, specifically because, like I said, I come from the data center days where we used to put tin in the racks, and if you didn't have the floor space, the power and the cooling, that server's not getting installed, let alone built and turned on, and nothing's touching that bit of tin. It's not even allowed. So now we just rely on the cloud and assume and outsource a lot of that responsibility. But that brings with it actually additional complications, not just from a cloud security perspective, but also from a supply chain perspective as well. So cloud security certainly is something that organizations are looking at and trying to deal with. And I think that's what you mean from a posture perspective. I see a lot of cloud security assessments. So they're looking at that service in the cloud and saying, okay, let me understand the posture, the risk of me using that service for my service. Okay. And that's where you get the supply chain. Supply chain isn't just the materials to, produce your hats, for example. Supply chain is, how do I get that service from my supplier into my organization, and what's going on behind their doors as well? How do I know they're safe? How do I know they're dealing with my information and my customers' information in a safe and secure way? And you might have one vendor that's providing multiple services. So treating a single vendor in a single way is difficult. It's not linear. You've got all of this kind of overlap. So certainly that's a big challenge right now. I'm not sure if that's answering specifically your question, Simon, but that's how I'm seeing it. Cloud security is a challenge, and it's something that we don't just take for granted anymore. I think we used to say it's in the cloud. Actually, we're looking at the supply chain behind it.
So we got one of our alumni and very own familiar face around here, Manly. Got a question. He said, yeah, what's up, man? He said, working in SecOps, is it similar to a security analyst?
I guess it depends. It depends where you sit, okay? Because maybe you work in SecOps and you're a user of that application. Maybe Rangu's gone in and done a project. We've implemented SecOps, security incident response and vulnerability response. And you, as a security analyst, are sitting there using it, and your life just got better. Or you're a consultant that's implementing it and talking to the security analysts and helping the security analyst's life get better. So security analysts, I think, are one of the personas in that flow, in that journey. We certainly work with SOC analysts as well. They're in the security operations center. They're dealing with the seam, if you like. They're working on the seam, dealing with all of these different information feeds, but those information feeds are being aggregated into ServiceNow as well. So I think there's a number of different layers and personas, and it really depends on the organization and how they're set up. So certainly if you're interested in security, cybersecurity, information security, then the SecOps solutions from ServiceNow are going to be relevant to you.
Phil, I was taking a look at your YouTube channel, and you have these shorts on your visit to Knowledge last year, I think it was. And so I was going to ask you, are you going to be attending Knowledge this year? And maybe if you could tell us what the experience is like and how we should be prepared for those of us who are actually going to be attending it. For the first time.
That hurts. That hurts, Alex. There's so much buzz going on around Knowledge this year. It's going to be amazing. Unfortunately, I won't be there. I know. It's like I say, it hurts. It hurts. But Rangu are sending a small delegation out. So I'll shout out Victor, our CEO, Lee Childs. He's going to be there. He's our head of pre-sales, and Rafael Cardoso. He's a rising star in the ServiceNow community, actually. Those three are heading out. What is it, next week? Last year I was at Knowledge in Den Haag, in The Hague, in the Netherlands, in Europe. So last year was the first year they did Knowledge again post-COVID, and they did it in a way that was a huge undertaking, actually. So shout to everybody that was involved in organizing and executing on Knowledge last year. Doing that in 4 places around the world. What were they in? New York, Las Vegas, Den Haag, and Sydney, I think. And my face was up in some of them as well. Yeah, so getting that to bring that together, I think that was huge. I did have the opportunity to speak at Knowledge last year in The Hague, and did a session on how to make your code more available for citizen developers. So and that's actually something that I do talk to my team and others about. Actually, is still, that presentation is still working, and it's a 10-minute presentation. I can break that down a bit more and go into more detail. But yeah, Knowledge. Shout out to everybody that's going to be there. If I was going to Knowledge, I would treat Knowledge like a meeting, like one big meeting. I would look at that and think, what is my objective here? What do I want to get out of this? And be very clear on my objectives. And then I would set the agenda for myself. Where am I going to be? What journey do I need to take? But leave space. Don't commit yourself to all of these different events and overcommit, but leave yourself some space. Leave space for the corridor conversations. Leave space in your bag for the swag. Make sure that you have that opportunity to network and speak to the people that you've been, missing for the last 3 or 4 years. Getting face to face with people is incredible. And I think one thing I learned last year is that everybody's bigger in person. Oh, and also one other thing: register for CreatorCon. Take part in the hackathons. You do not have to be a developer, but it's nice. If you are a developer, you definitely should be there. Go to devlink.sn/hackathon. Okay, you'll find out about CreatorCon. There's 4 categories this year. The judges are people from the community, from ServiceNow as well. And you will learn something. There's 2 rules for any hackathon. 1, learn. 2, have fun. And you're going to do both of them things in excess. Get onto CreatorCon. That would be my recommendation.
Nice. Thanks, Phil. Hey, we got one more from the chat. I got one from Callie here that I want to make sure get some recognition here. She said, it seems that SecOps is having a moment right now in tech. 2 questions. 1, what are the biggest risks enterprise is facing? And 2, what would you like to see next in the ServiceNow offering in this lane, or perhaps any integrations?
Callie's coming with the questions there, right? What's the biggest risk? The biggest risk to any organization is sat at the keyboard, the humans, right? It's either human error, or that's where the biggest attack vector is, I would say, to be honest. Because if something's going to go wrong, it's not my code. No, if something's going to go wrong, it's the person. It's somebody, a rogue actor in there, I'm sure. So I think that's something to think about, and that's again ties back to the security clearance question as well. But definitely biggest risks: information security, personal data, compliance, regulations, things like that. They're increasing rapidly by the day. Staying up to date with your regulations and staying on top of those compliance risks is huge. Let alone the technical risk, in terms of trying to keep your systems patched and up to date and your plugins upgraded, etc. Number 2, what would you like to see next in ServiceNow? I mean, I've got a backlog of stuff, and it was going to be on the idea portal very soon. So if you're interested in what you think is going on in the product, I would say get on the community and look at, this is not just to Cali, by the way, I'm not diverting the question, but look at the idea portal, look at the community and see what questions people are asking, and look at the answers as well. But then look at the idea portal and look at that and think, how would I solve it? as well. You know, if that was a problem that I had and I was on a project, how would I approach that? Or if I was building an app, how would I build that solution? So if you want some use cases, the community is great for that.
Cool. I have let's see, we got one more. Well, I got one more for you. It's kind of like a traditional question we love to ask people, you know, kind of in the ServiceNow space. What advice do you have for newcomers to the ServiceNow ecosystem? How should they kind of approach the ecosystem, you know?
Follow people in the community that are, you know, touching the areas that you're interested in. So, you know, follow creative coding careers for sure. You know, stay up to date on these kind of podcasts, and other people in the community as well. Follow them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's become a massive source of content recently. I don't know if anyone else has seen this shift. Get onto the ServiceNow community as well. That's where stuff is going to live on. Get on the Slack, SN Devs Slack channel as well. There's a Discord. Find your home in that way where you can get those sources of information. You know, the community should be your number one stop. Go to the developer site as well. Get a PDI. Right-click everything. And when I say that, I mean it. Literally right-click everything. I said to somebody yesterday, I think, they asked me a question. You know, from the list, they had a task record. I said, just right-click copy sysid. They said, oh, I didn't know you could do that. They would go into the record. Once the record's open, then right-click on the header from there and copy sysid. So, I mean, I'm counting clicks all the time. I love shortcuts. I love to cut through. Download SN Utils as well. Shout to Arnold, hero, an absolute hero. Arnold Cooey. SN Utils will save you, well, what, minutes on the hour?
We want to be respectful of your time, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us on your Friday evening. I know it's just about midnight over there where you are from. So thank you so much for spending the end of your week with us. Everybody have a great Cinco de Mayo, and everybody have a great weekend. If you have not linked up with Phil yet, I just dropped his LinkedIn URL so you guys can go ahead and link up with Phil and ask any questions that you still may have. Thank you again, Kali, for joining us. Thank you again from the mayor of ServiceNow. We'd love to have you on the show also. So we'll be reaching out, see if we can get you on a future episode. Deontay, you got any last words?
Nothing, but just thank you for everybody who tuned in. Once again, just kind of repeating what he said. Thank you, everybody, for hopping in. You guys enjoy your weekends.
Appreciate everybody. Next week, we'll have another ServiceNow expert. Everybody have a great weekend and have a nice Cinco de Mayo. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cinco de Mayo.